Hello.
Hello.
Very good morning. Earlier than usual.
Yes, it's 9:30 in Brussels and in Germany where you are, and we're happy to see you. Hopefully, somebody is here. We got one message from Louise in Brazil already. Louise, are you with us live? Because I think it's very early in Brazil, and yeah, we're going to talk about how to plan your content for fall or autumn, depending on how you pronounce it and or how you say it, and how you can make sure that even in the busiest time of year, and I appreciate it in Brazil is actually spring, but in the busiest time of year, you can have a consistent plan so that you can do all that busy work, all those events, and at the same time have your content ready. So, Sebastian, let's get started. What is your biggest tip for people to not be, constantly thinking, oh, what should I post today? For
Yeah.
people in an association or an NGO, for example. And yes, hi Nadesh, nice to see you. Duran, Lakshi, and Nadesh says it's her first time attending. Good to have you.
Oh wow, Nadesh. Well, welcome to our safe space every week here on LinkedIn, and we're very happy to see new faces. Maybe we have the early risers at this time of the day. So thank you very much for tuning in. We are also gonna do this a little bit differently because usually we want to share lots of content for you to make these sessions very valuable. And you can actually go to Liora's profile on LinkedIn or to mine and find all the past sessions. They are there. There is really, if we could put a price tag on all these sessions, it would be very high. And it's all there for people like you to learn. Today we are going to do something a little bit different, a little bit lighter, and we're going to do a little bit of role playing in a sense. One of the key pain points, let's put it this way, from that Liora and I we keep finding in our private consulting sessions is content calendar, content execution, content calendar execution. How do I plan my week, etc. And I think this all the work that you do before about finding your strengths, your DNA, is really important. It's as important to be able to execute on that, and that all that work is not left somewhere in your desktop. How I would think about planning a content calendar probably at the most or the busiest time of the year, which is September, all the way through the end of the year. If, for example, I am an NGO or a civil society organization looking, let's be specific, looking to secure more funding in the next EU long-term budget for civil society, right? And I think, let's say this also, let's put it out there, the most important thing when thinking about content calendar and social media strategy is that it's not delegated to the most junior person on the team, and that leadership needs to be fully involved in this discussion, so that at the end of the day, the social media strategy is everyone's strategy, and everyone is behind that. My experience, and I'm sorry for keeping it a little bit longer, but I think it's important to understand where we're coming from in Brussels, which is a city that is so that prizes knowledge and policy understanding, deep policy understanding, so much than probably the profiles that understand about social media communications. They are not the most senior, and even if they have some experience, they don't have the equal voice in the organization. So to me, this is the point where you communication professionals in NGOs, or if you're a thought leader, you can really shine. This is your moment to shine, because if you do your homework, then this is a very fun thing to do, very easy thing to do. You can make everyone happy. Would that be your assessment too, Liora? Where, like, the starting point?
Absolutely. And the two need to be completely integrated because sometimes you see different messages, even. And the funny thing is there's so much time and effort can go into a policy paper, for example. But if you look at how much attention will go to a LinkedIn post about that policy paper, or with, what should have been the same message, and how many people will read the policy paper, I gather that many more people will see that LinkedIn post. And you might say, okay, but the policy paper will be read by the right people. But is that really true? Will they really read the entire policy paper, or are they more likely to read, if it's targeted well, if it's written well, the LinkedIn post? So, it is very important that it's the same message. It is, you're able, because sometimes people are able to say a lot of words. They're able to say things in a lot of words, but they're not able to say it succinctly. They're not able to distill the key messages from that policy paper into a LinkedIn post, into a Substack article. And that's really where you can see the quality of the communication team, but also, the internal processes. Are they allowing you to tell the story in a visual way, in a video, format, for example? And so, if you tell the same story across your organization, if you allow your communication team to experiment, to stand out by doing it in a fun way, in a different way, that's where you really start making impact and have your messages come true. And by the way, Louis, welcome, and Kushi as well. So yeah, fully agree.
Right. So let's now, having said all that, which I think...
Dustin too, by the way. Hi, Dustin, sorry.
Okay, yeah, well, I mean, we should really think if this is our time to do this hour session, because I think though the caffeine from the coffee is kicking in, everyone is asking their questions. I absolutely love it. Right. So, but let's go to the actual question that you asked me, Liora. How do I think about this content planning? Well, I'm not gonna rediscover the wheel here. I think I would start thinking. I would look at the political calendar. And to me, the European Parliament calendar, with their weeks where they do committees, the weeks where they have plenaries, which means that they are physically in another country, and the weeks that they call green weeks, or the weeks where they go, or they are supposed to go back to their district and campaign. The reality is that those are also weeks where some of the members of the European Parliament do most of the travel abroad, especially if they are in delegations to other countries. It's going to be very difficult to find them. So that leaves, if you look at the calendar, and this calendar, probably this calendar by heart, that then that leaves you with very, very a small list, a small number of weeks on which you can actually make a difference. I'm gonna share our beloved calendar, which everyone knows, but just to have it, to use it as an example, I'm gonna share it with you, and you can see that to me this is my starting point. I say, okay, we are gonna be in the beginning of September. The weeks that are salmon pink, to me, are gonna be weeks where I can expect to do a lot of activity. Everyone is in a work mode, is reading, is absorbing, is discussing. Those are weeks that I am probably gonna put most of my content that is heavier. I will avoid the weeks in red and weeks in blue, unless, of course, the weeks in red, my topic as an NGO is being discussed or debated. In that case, full on, like that week, no one sleeps, everyone is producing, everyone is influencing. And but that doesn't mean I don't post anything in a Strasbourg week if I am not affected directly. And it doesn't mean that even in the green weeks, I am not posting anything because everyone is outside. I am going to plan things that are a little bit lighter, a little bit timeless, and that I can produce and get ready in advance. I would also look in terms of political calendar. Of course, I would look at my issues. For example, my specific example was the EU long-term budget. The negotiations are going to be very intense starting now in September, and all the way they need to get an agreement by the end of the year. So I know if I can influence something, it's going to be in the next 4 months, but maybe the calendar looks different if you are, if your initiative is coming a little bit later. How would you think, Liora, on that point of, the starting point, if you are a thought leader, and you also want to influence all these people to do certain things, how would you think about, starting to plan your content calendar?
Yeah, exactly. And that builds into Duran's question. By the way, hi, Nuno and Akshay as well. Duran says, if you make a calendar and at the same time write posts about things that happen now and be relevant, how do we do that? So how I like to see it is that, of course, always be helpful to your audience. Don't just say what you have on your mind, but think about their pain points and how you can help them. That doesn't change. But I always like to plan 60 to 70% of the content in advance, recurring themes, explainers, event build up, case studies, etc. And then keep 20 to 30% open for things that happen, commentary, news, internal developments. Anyway, you always need to stay very close to your content, because what you don't want is to just have everything planned out, even scheduled. You don't even remember what you scheduled, and then there might be something that is very insensitive. You plan something very fun and light about, I don't know, your dog, and then a war breaks out on that very same day, and you're actually responsible for those topics. You can be a minister, for example. These things have happened, and it's very insensitive. And it can also happen if you're a sec gen of an organization, and you don't want to be insensitive. That's why I always recommend staying very close to your content. And even if you schedule your content, going in manually and pressing posts. This is also important, because then you're more aware that it's gone out. You're more aware of who's commenting and staying close to conversation. You don't want to you're not a scheduling machine. So you can plan it, but it doesn't mean you just have to let it go. Mm-hmm. So you have that 60 to 70% plan, 20 to 30% open. So for example, that could be, depending on how much time you have, one post that you schedule in advance and one post that you build on the fly, depending on what you read, depending on what you see, depending on the questions you get that particular week, depending on what you feel is going on in the discussions around your files. And then it's always good to maintain an emergency content bank. So 5 to 10 posts or pieces of content that are ready to go in case you don't have any inspiration for your second post that week. I always have a lot of extra timeless posts that I don't often need, because I always have a lot of new inspiration for myself and for our clients. But it's always good to have them, to know, if there's a very busy week, you haven't had the time, even though there are theoretically a lot of files or things that you should be posting about, you could just throw them up so you don't have to go down. Because as I always explain to my clients, you can always go up in frequency. That is not bad. But if you post twice a week and all of a sudden you go down because you're busy, that's not very good. So it's good to have that emergency bank. What do you think, Sebastian?
Yeah, that's right. I was thinking about the example of, at a high level, but the example of the Prime Minister of Spain, who probably someone in his TikTok team left a very calm, relaxed, chill summer type of content scheduled, recommending books for the summer on the same day where 80,000 people, migrants, were crossing the border. Social media was on fire. Everyone was in a panic mode. And then the president presented itself calm, relaxed, with a little bit of time, and say, hey, you should listen to this Spotify list that I've created. And I think it backfired massively. It drove the conversation, and it fed into the narrative. I'm going to talk about narratives in a second, that the government was not on top of things. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to be a thought leader on artificial intelligence, and then something really happens. For example, this morning I was reading, it was everywhere, this new research about whether kids, children who use AI do better at homework but worse at exams. That's in the media. And then on that day, you go and publish something, I don't know, completely that goes against that. So maybe that day, maybe you want to read that research. Maybe your content, if you don't agree with that research, or you find you have an alternative research, then that's the day that you say, hey, everyone is talking about this one, but this is why I think it's grown. So that makes you even more newsworthy and relevant, no?
Yeah, that's always so the reason that, I believe better to do few channels really well than to be everywhere, because then you cannot manage it anymore. But then you might be really out of tune, which can be really damaging for your reputation. Another thing is, a lot of people are now outsourcing their voice. You might be a senior professional, a CEO, a secretary general, and you might outsource your voice to your team, or you might use AI to write your content. What I think is the better way is to write or have one long form piece of content. It might be a podcast, it might be a session like this one, or it might be a newsletter that you write, that you yourself write, or at least really closely check and make sure it sounds like you. And then that piece of content can be turned into many pieces of content. It can be turned into text posts, carousels, documents, stories, polls, graphics, if it's a video, in video snippets, shorter videos. And that is a much better way to preserving your own voice than to immediately outsource it to a team. I recently created a DNA key for a CEO, and she was very frustrated because she said, my team cannot get my voice right. I keep having to rewrite it. And I said, well, it's much better to start with your own voice instead of expecting them to sound like you. They're not you. It will be very difficult. Now, the document will really help. You can have AI set up a voice checker, let's say, but this is the much better way, in my opinion. What do you think, Sebastian?
Yeah, it is. It's definitely the way I would. I also personally think about it when working with the clients or even myself. I don't have a team behind me, but if I had, I wouldn't. And when I've had it, it was very frustrating for them to get me. So that responsibility lies with the individual, because that's your biggest strength. People tune into you to hear how you talk, how you pause. The filler word that you use, those are also part of you, even if we try not to make them very often. But that's you in the end, and that's what people want.
Okay, I noticed by looking at some of our previous lives that I say right. I say that. What do you think? Right. And it's fine. I think it's fine. Like, that's how we sound, right?
That's right. Yeah. All right. So now, of course, we're talking generally. Let's look at we've touched upon like a few things right now, which is how you're going to prepare for the content, how you need to bear in mind when your audience is going to be busy, but also you don't want that you end up at the end of December and you haven't touched some of the pain points or the barriers that you as a communicator need to solve. So you need to define those barriers. You need to say, okay, by the end of the year, I would like an average follower who has, in this case, my audience would be a member of the European Parliament or a policy or a personal, not policy, a parliamentary assistant, which are as important as the MEPs, to go through to at least get different touch points with me, and that I try to solve with communication some of the barriers, right? So what would be the barriers and when would I schedule these barriers? I think the first barrier, especially if you are new, but even if you are new, there are new people. Remember, every 5 years, more than half of the parliament is new. So you need to do a basic awareness. So I would try to help people understand, probably this is the most important one, every single week, and especially the weeks that are a little bit lighter, you can be more creative and you can expand a little bit more. You need to explain people why you exist, what are the topics that you work on, what are your values, and you can do this taking from what Liora has done. You can do this any time of the year, or you should be able to do that any time of the year.
Yeah.
The late hours of July are really good, early of August. I would always recommend the people that I work with that, for example, if you are recording something in August, that you don't show up in the interview with, short lips or something that really signals that it's going to be summer, because then you're going to post this in November and there's going to be a disconnect, right? So I think that is also important when recording content, that you think this content is about awareness, is about testimonials, maybe, about why, in our case of the NGO, what we do and why it's important that that in the places where it matters the most, where there's no access to funding, where maybe governments are trying to suppress that funding altogether, why it is important that NGOs operate to support media plurality. To the case of Hungary, for example, NGOs were vital and critical in discovering and following corruption cases, and they were not funded by the government. It's very difficult that people also that they get the money from crowdsourcing campaign. Most of the funding, may come from grants that are given at European level, right? And that is something that you can do. Awareness. Always, you think as the organization that everyone knows what you do, but trust me, no one knows what you do. You are just one out of many. And that is a work every single week. I would say you need to reserve one day for awareness, probably the lighter day, Monday, Tuesdays. You need to drop your content pill about something different about what you do. Don't repeat. There are many angles. And probably it's the same for a thought leader, no? You think that you are the best and that everyone knows who you are, but probably there is a lot more work to be done around awareness.
But so when we talk about awareness, this doesn't mean this is what I do. It is touching a pain point of one of your clients and explaining how they can solve it themselves. So not how you can solve it for them, because that sounds like sales, and nobody wants to be, feel like you're selling something to them. But it's explaining how they themselves can solve that problem, and by doing that, and how in your own experience, so you don't just say 10 ways to do XYZ. It's 10 ways to do XYZ as per your experience. So you do throw your experience in there, but it's not just you saying, I do this and this is great because of that, so I don't know if I'm explaining this well, but it's very important that you offer value without pushing yourself forward too aggressively. At the same time, now that LinkedIn is showing your post to a lot of new people every single time, I do recommend, and try to find a way to do that in a way that's not cringe, is to put a little signature at the bottom of your post where you say, I am Liora. With my company, the Think Room, I do XYZ, and maybe in a funny way, but people still understand, okay, this is what that person brings. And of course, when they go to your profile, if we talk about LinkedIn, that profile should be completely clear about not only what you bring to the world, but also what you bring to LinkedIn, what kind of post they can expect from you, should they follow you, and especially if they put your bell on always, right? So that they see all your posts. So I would really recommend that you create those awareness posts in a way that is really helpful to your audience. I spoke to someone and he said, well, I really don't want to share how I do things. I'm afraid that people will steal it. And they will. People steal my content all the time. They use my frameworks. They've downloaded my entire book and sold it as their own. But I don't care, because they cannot steal my experience. They cannot steal, 30 years of doing it in the field, So I think as long as you have the actual experience, you shouldn't be afraid to display it, because that's what will make people come to you and want to work with you and want to interview you and want to get you around the table as a speaker. And so don't be scared about that.
The way that I also think about that, and I love the way you do it, Liora, it's really like something that I follow, is that even if they copy you, you're always one step ahead. Like sometimes I've seen people and organizations replicating some of the initiatives that I think I've done. Like maybe I took it from someone else, right? Yeah. You're not the center of the world. But it is true that I now see many people who probably were inspired by me, and I think they add value. They add their own way. Yeah. But I am already many steps ahead. And so, okay, you can follow me, but I think by staying true to yourself and be generous, more people will come to you, and you will add more value to the to the community. Like, it's not about you, it's about the community. So if someone wants to take what you do and add some flavor to it, and some people find that useful, then that's also a way that you are doing, you're accomplishing your mission.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's look at some questions. So Luis says, "Hola, Sebastian. If you stop posting, your analytics will drop. How do you recover the performance in further weeks?"
Thank you, Luis, and it's very amazing that you are with us, even if it is winter time. It's truly amazing. You're our top one follower, but also friend by now. I think this happened to me during August. I thought I was gonna have more time to prepare content and more time, and I was not going to take so much time off. But then at the end of the day, I did. I didn't post throughout the month of August. The metrics did come down, and I gotta be honest. I think it is. I could have done things to keep it high, but I also think that I needed a mental, like, a space to rethink how I can recover. And what I say is stay true to what you are doing. Go back, look at the metrics of what has worked in the past, and start doing more of the things that work and less of the things that didn't. And start posting, start committing, show up. I can see now that my engagement is going up. So don't think that just because you went on holidays 1 month, then everything is lost. It's not like that, but it's true that use that time to go back to basics, go back to what you really enjoy doing, what people really like reading about you, and keep showing up. There is no other way to recover. Keep showing up with more original, authentic, interesting content, and then the algorithm, the new algorithm, will reward you. I would say. Don't you agree, Liora?
Absolutely. And also, if you look at your best performing posts over the last 5 days, 365 days or 90 days, or, you can choose the period in the analytics, post the ones that did really well, post them again, maybe post them with a different caption, post them with a different image, and they will perform again and again and again. I explained this in one of the previous sessions, how one post now has did 21,000 impressions the first time, 41 the second time, and now it's still running, and it has, I think, 85,000 impressions in a different format. I now turn it into an infographic. And so, apparently this is content your audience really likes. Of course, don't obsess over impressions. You want to look at real life results, because if that post gets a lot of impressions, but nobody books a meeting with me, nobody starts following me, then that's not actually good content. So try to keep that's what I really recommend. Try to create an Excel for yourself and put in not just those things that are visible, not just impression, not just followers, but who reached out to you. You can't always pin it down, but you can ask them, why are you reaching out to me? What was the reason you reached out to me? Try to really find out what sparked media attention, what made people, if you're looking for a job, when are people recruiters reaching out to you, and repeat those types of posts. So try to be, I post every day, so it becomes quite a job to keep all those data up to date, because I don't give anyone else access to my LinkedIn, because I find it quite personal. But if you post once, twice a week, you can really keep all that data in an Excel. You can ask an LLM to analyze it for you and say, okay, which post. And one thing I wanted to tell you is that, you see the followers connected to a specific post, but that does not include people that pressed connect as a result of a post. So it's just people who just press follow, and not people that press connect. So it's not a full view that you would have to somehow guess, but still gives you a lot of information. And if you do an analysis like that, share it on LinkedIn if you're in a communication type of role, because people find that very interesting as well. So those repetitive posts, don't post that, keep a 90-day or so between them, but those are also very good for the fall period because you're not actually doing anything new. So that can be the backup content as well.
Yeah.
Hi, Masi.
Hey, hello. I'm really loving the conversation. The hour, like to me, the most productive hour of the day is also the one of our followers, of our participants today. So just putting it out there, like maybe we come back to this more often. Anyway,
one question for people who are watching: what is your preferred time for Friday morning? If you could put it in Brussels time, it's currently 10 o'clock here. What would be your preferred time for us to go online? Is it 10 o'clock? Is it 9:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11, 11:30, like we used to do? Do you have a preferred time? If so, let us know.
Mm-hmm. Also, let us know any questions. We have an extra maybe 10 more minutes. So make sure that you drop your question, but we will continue in the meantime also. Okay, I think he read my mind, Nuno, and let's take it real time and let's read it out loud.
Yeah. Shall I read it? As we move into an environment where algorithms increasingly reward engagement rather than simple content production, shouldn't we be thinking about engagement calendars alongside content calendars, deliberately planning how and when we interact with key stakeholders rather than focusing solely on what we publish? Tell me what you think, Sebastian.
Yeah, actually, I think he was reading my mind, and let me share something, for example, that I had put together as a way to structure myself during this session. But I think the way, Nuno, that I would think about that is exactly like you said. Is what you post, and I'm wearing the hat of an NGO. I came up with a fake one, so it doesn't exist. This Civic Europe network. You need to not think only about the what you post, but also what's going to be the engagement, what's going to be what's happening in the real world that needs you to actually post, right? And this would be none of my engagement calendar. I think imagine like going back to the basics, and I want to influence the European Commission, Parliament, the Council to put more money towards NGOs, civil society organizations, and I have until the end of the year. So of course, I'm gonna assume, although I know it's gonna be December, it's gonna get decided on the 31st of December, but I'm gonna assume that November is the actual decision moment. What I want to think is what's gonna be my narrative from today all the way until the end of the year. I surely want to start September light, framing why civil society is important for democracy, media plurality, uncovering corruption, etc. Then in that, I wouldn't choose September as a moment where I want people to engage with my policy content. Probably I have a report on a state of the civil society in Europe or whatever I have. I don't think September is going to be a month where people are going to probably, I am not going to prioritize it, but I would like October to be all about that specific proof. And I want people to download it. And I can also track how many people are downloaded. I can track how many of my public affairs colleagues are meeting and presenting this report to key stakeholders. But then, of course, as we move towards end of November, what I want is to mobilize my community, maybe do collaboration campaigns on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok would be like a really important ones for this hypothetical case. And of course, the moment to act is when they actually need to pass this legislation and they need to agree on that. So if there is something that I need from them, from my stakeholders, that's the engagement is going to come in late November. And of course, December, assuming that everything is done, I am going to report back what we have achieved, what would have happened if we didn't run this campaign. I think this is also really important. Like sometimes you don't achieve 10 out of 10. Actually, I would say you never achieve 10 out of 10, but you need to explain what you achieved, what it was important, what were the trade-offs, and so that your community, your stakeholders keep supporting you, right, in this fight, because you are not there only for one specific policy or legislation. You are there for the long term, and the next policy battle will be just around the corner. How would you think about this, Liora, about this narrative, personal narrative, let's call it this way, for someone who is doing thought leadership on LinkedIn?
Yeah, for me, again, it's the most important thing is, and I think that's what Nuno meant. Maybe not. If not, Nuno, please explain yourself. But it's that we often see that people are just pushing out content rather than thinking about what the audience needs or what the pain points are. Of course, what you explained is very important. You're actually trying to achieve policy goals. But if you want to be, or if you are a thought leader and you want to be seen as such, again, it does not help if you, and I actually spoke to someone this week who was basically pushing out thought leadership content. And some, if you're very opinionated, of course, you're going to get some engagement, but it will not get, because we know if we're talking about LinkedIn, the current algorithm rewards saves, and it rewards conversation, and it rewards forwards. And so people don't want to just follow you if you just have a specific opinion, especially because most people are a little bit tame. So, what do they get out of it? It needs to be a little bit more focus on how you can help them, and not just about what you think, which is a little bit counterintuitive if your goal is to be a thought leader. But a thought leader needs to also be helpful. At least that's what works on LinkedIn. So I don't know if that answers the question or if there was a different question, but that's what I at least see working.
Yeah.
Because, a thought leader, or at least an expert, that's more how my goal for my clients is to become an expert in their field, or be seen as an expert in their field. And you do that by a variety of opinions and sharing knowledge, and also being funny, you showing your personality. So it's a whole combination of things. And it's not just, here is what I think about subject X, especially if that's done in a very dry way. That's not going to get you the traction. That's not going to get you the badge that you're hoping for, or the invitations.
And I think the same for NGOs, civil society. It's not, this is my policy, but it's also, this is how I see the world. And this is how, what I'm doing also from a more human point of view. This is what I'm doing. Those are my people. And always try to appeal to this higher narrative of societal good. You're trying there. Of course, if you are in a lobby or you are in a trade association, it's gonna be the same, but also maybe different. Maybe your societal narrative is more, I want to employ a lot of people. Every time I want to employ, I want them to be good. I want to grow the economy. I think what I'm doing it's good, and therefore this is why we need this legislation to make it easier for us, or not easier, or to protect us, or whatever your point, your standpoint is. It's gonna be more than change this article, or like we saw. I was reading the other day on Politico that sometimes this when we talk about public affairs, this also shows the human side in a way. Because there was this article where the lobby of diamonds in Antwerp gave a diamond ring to Donald Trump to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the Constitution, of the Declaration of Independence. But that also shows that they know their audience, right? And if they got some preferential treatment as a result of that, that shows that they think about the human side of tariffs, right? And those
You know
techniques.
who you have in front of you, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Last but not least, because
So how would you summarize today's session if we would give, or you had a final point, because we need to wrap it up.
I would say what today at the beginning of the session looked like 4 months of content to fill, and it was impossible. I think we've narrowed it down to actual things that you can prepare most of it in advance. You said this rule of 60 to 70% whilst leaving enough room for improvisation, things that happen.
Yeah.
And now it's manageable. I feel that it's manageable. I can fill this content, this calendar with content. And I also feel that at the end of that I can tell my story, my organization story, or my personal story in doing so. So I think those are my true takeaways. It's manageable to do, and you can, in posting your content, you can tell your own story. What about you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also, you said, don't tell it in the same way. I actually think you can repeat things because people won't have seen it. So your best performers, the things where you feel you're really representing yourself very well, or that connected really well with people, you can post them again. So that also takes the pressure away a little bit. Do it in different formats. Don't only post text posts, or only, I helped 2 people this week, and one was only posting text posts and the other one was only posting selfies. I wouldn't do either. Just mix up formats, because also different people respond to different things. So then you're able to capture a lot of people's attention, and try to make a little bit of a plan now. Hopefully for you, it's still a little bit more quiet now. Remember, guys, it's 4 months till Christmas. 4 months is crazy. So do a little bit of planning now, so that you can. So that you don't have to do it while things are crazy and you have to go to an event every single day. Thank you for joining us today. I see your note about the times. Maybe I'll do a little poll on my channel so that you can tell us what time you would prefer us to continue, and we'll let you know what time we'll do it next week. Thank you all for joining us, for your great questions. And Akshay, I appreciate, and some people that we didn't get to all of the questions, but we might return to them in the chat. Thank you, and have a great weekend.
Ciao. Thank you, Liora. I really enjoyed this session.
Same. Thank you, Sebastian. Great tips.
Ciao.
Bye.